Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rocky Evans. It's April 1st, Fool's Day, 2015, and I'm at Skydive Deland doing an interview for the National Skydiving Museum that's going up in sometime, I hope, soon. So that's what this interview is all about. I guess I like to start out like everybody else does from the beginning. I made my first jump in May of 1970 at Austin Lake, Michigan. And from there, after I made my first jump, it just scared the living shit out of me. But for some reason, I came back and made my second jump. And from that point in time in my life, I pretty much decided this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, which was skydive. I was pretty lucky to grow up with a real good friend of mine that I learned to skydive with, who was my age, and with his help and my help, we helped to fix each other on skydives because nobody really knew anything. In other words, there was no really competent instructors in free fall, and that's what we were basically looking at and preparing ourselves for. During that time period, there was really no such thing as two people leaving the airplane and being able to leave independently and free fall down and catch one another, and then being able to come on the ground and talk about it. So back in the 60s, the first basic relative work proof was called the baton pass, where one skydiver left the aircraft solo, another skydiver left right after him solo, and the skydiver that went out first had a stick in his hand. And the second skydiver had to come down and catch the first skydiver, and when he did that, they transferred the stick to the other person. Therefore, that gave you proof that they did actually come and close together, actually hook up and transfer the stick. Back in those days, there was no such thing as a GoPro. There was no such thing as video cameras. There was basically, that did not exist. So what you went on was word of mouth. So this actually showed proof that two skydivers could leave the airplane independently and have enough skill level to be able to come together. So that's the start of what we call relative work. And back when I was learning to skydive, that was just starting to come around to be the new thing in skydiving. Before then, during the 60s and the 50s, I believe, the United States Parachute National Championships took place in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and the only events that they had were style and accuracy. Style was going up and turning a series of free fall maneuvers, right turn, left turn, back loop, right turn, left turn, back loop, and then when you completed that, you were judged by time, how quick it took you to do. The other one was accuracy, where you left the aircraft with your canopy open and you saw how close you could come to a target, which is about the size of a 3-inch disc. So that was the only two things that they had at the Nationals at the time. But right around 1970 and 71, the sport was growing as far as relative work was concerned. Now, relative work here again is being able to skydive out of the airplane on your own and go free fall down and being able to catch someone or something or some formation. Now, it just could be 2-on-2, and it could be, in today's world, it could be a 400 way that they accomplished back in 4 or 5 years ago, which is the world record, the current world record. And to me, that's just one fantastic thing that they've achieved. And through the years, because I can remember 7 or 8 of us leaving a twin beach and free falling for 60 seconds and never touching one another. So eventually, we were lucky at our drop zone because we had a twin beach, and the twin beach took 10 people. Well, you can't do a 10-way formation with a 4-place airplane. So we were pretty lucky to have that. So we used it to our advantage. And our going through our skydiving during the summer months, because I lived in Michigan. I mean, you can't skydive in the wintertime. In Michigan, you can, but it's too cold for me. But we were really trying to do a 10-way formation. And it took all 10 of us probably a good solid year of jumping together during the summertime to where we finally accomplished the first 10-way in the state of Michigan. Now, the only other states that did any 10-ways were Florida and California. And California, I believe, was the first they were the first state to accomplish a 10-way star, which is 10 people holding on to hands in a circle. So we got pretty good at it, and we started to think to ourselves, well, you know, let's see about going to the nationals and competing. And I was all for that because I was a competitor, athlete in high school, and I love competition. So we went on ahead and practiced from the months of May, June, and July. I think was when they had the nationals, maybe June. But we went out in 1973 and we participated, and I believe we took 8th place or something like that, which wasn't bad for a bunch of deadbeats from Michigan. All right, and then the next year, we really focused our attention. This is 1974. John Sherman built the SST. He came up with the very first piggyback system, and that was what it was called, was the SST. And then Steve Snyder Enterprises came up with the square canopy that you could take to terminal. Because before then, we had square canopies, but you could not take them to terminal. They would open so hard that they would physically hurt you. So at this point in time, we were blessed with Sherman building the rig and Steve Snyder giving us the first 10 Stratostar ram air canopies that you could take to terminal. And we put those two together, and they made one heck of a change in skydiving as it is today. That was the very first ram air canopy, like I told you, that you could take to terminal. Well, John built 10 of those for our 10-way team. And we went to the nationals. We had trained hard, really hard. We had 110 10-way jumps. At this point in time, when we were practicing the 10-ways, we had our own 4-way team that when the 10-way was complete and done, our little 4-way team would come to the middle. The other 6 people would track off, and at that point in time, we would start our formation for the 4-way competition at the Nationals, which is different than 10-way. 4-way competition back then was set up to where you go out of the aircraft and you build a 4-way star. And as soon as you complete that star, you break hands, let go, do a back loop, and go into another maneuver that was chosen on the ground by the judges. There was like 6 jumps and 6 different maneuvers, and you pick the maneuvers out of a hat. There was a possibility of 10 of them, but there was only a 6-round meet, so we choose them out of a hat, whatever they were. They could be a caterpillar, they could have been a Murphy star, it could have been a star, could have been a snowflake. Whatever they chose, that's what we did. So in other words, 4-way, you break the 4-way, the time starts, and when the next formation's complete, the watch is hit again and it stops. So generally speaking, back in 1974, most of our times were like 8 seconds, maybe 7 seconds, and at this point in time, that was competitive, but it was still a little bit slow. Now, the name of our team, the Rainbow Flyers, in those days, like I said, we were a sub-team from our 10-way team. The 10-way team was called the Beechnuts. And like I said, our 4-way team was pretty much just there for fun. So we went to the 74 Nationals, and we competed in 10-way. And we placed, I think, 5th, which wasn't real good. We thought we'd do better than that. And then on the other hand, the Rainbow Flyers went out there with 15 jumps. And when we left the meet, we were gold medal winners. We had won the meet. And to me, that was a little bit of a surprise. And as to the other 3 of my teammates, it was a surprise to us all. So now we're heading back to Michigan, and we've got our gold medals from the Nationals, and you know I'm pretty happy about that. And we get back to Michigan, and we go on with our normal lives. Well, 2 weeks after I was home, Sam Brown, my teammate, says, "Get ready to go to South Africa. We're going to the World Meet." Wow, that's pretty cool. We've only got 17 jumps. You know, we're going up against these big-time French competitors that we found out was a military team. They had 750 practice jumps. So we went to South Africa, and we went and got down there. We had these square canopies with these piggyback rigs, and when the competitors came out, there were 18 countries. We got there and pulled our gear out of our gear bags, and all these other people stand around go, what is that? What's in there? What kind of canopy do you have? And we told them we had a baby cloud, because they came out with, C. Snyder came out with a competition canopy back then. It was called a cloud, and everybody knew what that was. Nobody knew what a Stratostar was because we had the first 10. But when we went up on a practice jump at the World Meet and jumped and opened our canopies up and came down, all 4 of us landed in the pea gravel pit standing up. Seeing was believing. And these people went nuts. So we went on ahead and did the competition, and we got done. It was a 6-round meet again, and we won first place again, which was pretty good down winning a World Meet. So we finished with that. We went back to the United States with our gold medal, and the next year we practiced really hard in 4-way. We did not concentrate on 10-way at all. And when we went to that meet in the Nationals in '75, the Rainbow Flyers took first place there also. And we did a real good job. I was proud of our team. We worked hard. And then at that point in time, we went to the World Meet that was in Warndorf, Germany in 1975. And there was 27 countries there. And we won first place, along with Captain Hook's Sky Pirates, which was the United States 10-way championship team. They were there also. They won first also. And in '74 at the World Championships, Jerry Bird's team, Wings Over Orange, won the first place 10-way event. So in those 2 years, we were unstoppable. The 4-way and the 10-way teams just cleaned house and took all the gold and ran, went back home to back to the United States, and we kept doing it. I did that. 1976, we went to the Nationals. We won again, but they at that point in time, they didn't have a world meet really set up for that time period. And so we never did go to a world meet back then. So, you know, being a world champion 3 times and a national champion 3 times, and actually working your tail off to get somewhere. You know, back in them days, we had to support ourselves. We had no sponsors. So it was time to go back to work and be in the real world. And that's what we did. So after we... What do you want me to do?